Investigation by the Indian Express newspaper has revealed that China has been spying on over 10,000 prominent Indians. So it's not absolutely surprising that China has also been targeting influential Indians in the field of business. China's database has over 1,400 entries, including veteran businesspersons and startup founders. On the list are Chairman Emeritus of Tata Sons Ratan Tata, e-commerce firm Flipkart's co-founder Binny Bansal, food delivery app Zomato's founder and CEO Dipinder Goyal, Swiggy's co-founder and CEO Nandan Reddy, and retail Nykaa's co-founder and CEO Falguni Nair. China's data harvesting in particular targets India's growing digital economy. Those targeted include venture capitalists, angel investors, founders and chief technology officers of the country's promising startups and e-commerce platforms, and foreign investors based in India. Companies across sectors are being tracked. The list includes Cipla-backed Wealthy Therapeutics, edutech firms Byju's and Oliveboard, e-commerce payment apps PhonePe, Pay, solutions providers Mahindra Logistics and TruckSap have also been targeted. China has been tracking firms in the urban transportation sector as well, like bike-sharing app Yulu. So why is China targeting the Indian economy to this extent? This monitoring is part of what is known as hybrid warfare. The massive data harvesting comes amid the India-China border tensions. China has been seeing India's growing economic stature as a threat. Earlier, India banned more than 100 Chinese applications over security concerns. India also has been curbing Chinese investment in domestic firms to prevent hostile takeovers. Joining us live on the broadcast this minute is the journalist who exposed China's tracking of key Indian figures, from politicians to entrepreneurs to defense officials, and now also about how China is tracking these business entities. P. Vedyanathan Iyer, Executive Editor, National Affairs, The Indian Express, is joining us live. Thanks very much for speaking with us. Welcome to WION. If you can break down for us the process involved as far as this investigation is concerned, how challenging was it?
Yeah, it started off with a very innocuous, LinkedIn message from a source in Vietnam who is an academician who has worked with HSBC Business School in Shenzhen for about a decade, almost a decade. So he said that he has got some information about which I would be very interested. So it started off with that. Generally what happens is, as journalists, we get so many messages, so many calls, we tend to ignore them, or we don't call them back. But this was one message, I would generally respond to every message. So this was again one of those messages I thankfully responded to. And then, then that was a starting point. I remember that date very distinctly. It was May 21. And over a period of time, we started kind of discussing this with the source, Christopher Balding, who was the professor that I was talking about, and another gentleman who's in Canberra, Robert Potter, who owns an internet company now, who owns basically a cybersecurity firm and used to work with British Aerospace earlier. He helped us put together the data in a format which is readable. So this data had come to Christopher from a source who's of course connected to the company. So there have been reports that the information is stolen, the data is stolen, but the whistleblower or the source, of course, remains anonymous because of security concerns. So this was the starting point, and then the data was put together in a manner where we could read, and we were given very specific access methodologies to get into the database online, and we were not allowed to kind of download the whole database onto our systems because that is also a security risk. We were allowed access to the servers, and this was a very painful and laborious task because these were log files created, 10,000 odd log files, distributed between me, Jay Mazumdar, and Conan Sharif. I had roped them in for the project, and it took us a while to just sift the data, go one by one, a laborious exercise of looking at each link that had to be opened up. So creating data sheets, Excel sheets, sharing them, putting them together, kind of numbering them, uh, putting them into different buckets. I think that was the process which took us almost 2.5 months. So and then we could get the big picture of what exactly this data is all about.
Right, you mentioned Robert Porter, who of course also has authenticated that data, the Canberra-based cybersecurity expert. We also spoke to him yesterday, who has, of course, raised an alarm over the magnitude of the spying which is taking place, and also at some extent compared it to the Cambridge Analytica case.
Yeah, I think this is a monster of data, and given the staggering scale in terms of geographies, the number of countries about which data has been collected. So we can just say that this is all innocuous data, which has been scraped from all kinds of social media platforms and other online forums, be it blogs, be it think tank articles, organizations, entities, etc., etc. But the staggering scale of more than say 50 billion data points collected over over 2 years, because this company was set up as you would have discussed with others, was set up only in 2018 April, and of course they had begun work on it even a year earlier. So but the scale and depth of the data is what was staggering. And when we look at data, you look at not just scraping of information, personal information from various social media sites. Of course, that is one aspect. But the other critical aspect is, do they really open up fields, numbering into ends of fields, so that at a later date that you keep collecting and building to this database. So which is what is it is bothersome, it is worrisome.
Right, and among those influential Indians, the list, of course, is extensive. Over 10,000 prominent Indians and their data being harvested. What is the exact nature of the data that is being mined? To what extent is this being used? If you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, certainly. The most interesting part, I think, which many people kind of, which we also probably tend to get, which gets lost in communication, is that it is not just the top people that we are talking about. From the president to the prime minister to the cabinet ministers to the chief ministers to the members of parliament to MLAs to mayors to sarpanches to say lots of tech entrepreneurs who are at startup stage, angel investors, etc., etc. It is not just them. That is a small portion. I would imagine that of the 10,000 names that we are talking about, this could be roughly about 2,500. But there is a bulk of 7,000 odd names that we know of. There could be many more. I'm not even sure whether we have the entire data, which is called the overseas key information database. So we don't know whether we had the entire database, but from what we had, there were 10,000 people, and not all of them are VVIPs. So there are people who are just an engineer in ISRO, a random nuclear scientist who's not really well known. There is an engineer probably down the line in one of the big tech companies, global tech companies, which has got a R&D base here. So these are random names, and they are very specific. So even when we are looking at, say, categories of normal individuals, and then when we do deep search, so there is a pattern to it. They are not there for no reason. So that is one aspect, and how this harmless information can be weaponized. That is the most critical question, which we can ignore today. We can say that everything is legitimate. Many people have told us that what is wrong in this. They are picking up data from Facebook, Insta, Wiki, Twitter, and the likes. There are about 12 social media platforms, and there are lots of other online news forums, blogs, etc. Data sources from you are picking up data. So, but all this is available online. How does it matter? So I can just give an example. For instance, today's world, mobile has become the biggest asset in your hands. With mobile, most of the mobiles are Chinese mobiles. With these mobiles, you do almost every transaction. You do your Aadhaar verification happens on mobile. You're making your payments on mobile. You get your codes, SMS codes for online transactions on mobile. Even say voice recognition happens on mobile. So we are not sure right now sitting here. Am I certain that the thousands and millions of mobile phones, Chinese phones today that are there in the market, are they all? I'm not really sure whether everything is fine. I'm not sure whether there is a spyware introduced later on, could be ab initio, I don't know. So one aspect is that. Second is what we do about our hygiene. That is a very critical area that we need to look at. What do we post online? Do we maintain online hygiene? Are we selective about giving information? How this information, while these small dots of information, there are millions of information individual. I would say there are, say, 10,000 people. So one person's data doesn't make sense to me. But when these 10,000 people's data in a small gram panchayat, if it is all put together, I can figure out patterns in that. I can look at the KYC of the person who's an individual who's on some platform online. I can figure out a sentiment, and I can figure out a public opinion analysis. I can do that. And probably when the company claims that it caters to military, it caters to PLA or to the Chinese government or to the Communist Party of China, then I'm worried that it is not just another company rivalry. It is not just another, say, tech rivalry. Then I am talking about a neighbor with whom the country is having problems, with whom there are border skirmishes. So that is one aspect, whether this data, when collectively looked at it from, say, right now you are one small pigment in the dance floor, but when you move to the balcony and see that there are thousands of elements on the dance floor, then you get a sense of the scale. Then you get a sense of how that entire crowd on the dance floor is moving. So you are getting a very top-down view of behavior and characteristics of a large number of people, which can be weaponized. Today, we don't know whether it is being weaponized or not. But I'm saying, are we aware that it can be done? Are we aware that hybrid warfare will become a big issue in the years to come beyond just military warfare? We're talking about conventional wars so far. Are we aware that in due course the war may not just be on the battlefront on the ground? It could move to a different terrain. So one is acknowledgement that this is happening, and third probably is preparation for that. I think that is another element. So we need to be cognizant of these things before, say, just dismissing that, so what, this is being done.
Right, and the family trees of these individuals also being tracked. That's just one part, like you said, of the many steps in which this spying is carried out. We're going to leave it there for the moment. P. Vaidyanathan Iyer, thanks very much for joining us and telling us more about this investigation, which tells us more about the hybrid warfare that China is engaged in and the multiple ramifications that this really comes with.